that bottle of wine. Grab your favorite glass, pour a couple of fingers of scotch in it. Get that stick, light it, and blow. It's time to hang with Steel Sharpened Steel After Dark.
Hey everybody, welcome to this edition of Steel Sharpened Steel After Dark. I'm Tom Cunningham.
I am Joyce Stevens, and welcome everyone, especially Anthony Turner. Y'all got to get up early in the morning to beat Anthony, and he's already got 3 comments 15 seconds into the show, right? And yes, Anthony, After Dark is needed so we can just cut loose and let freedom ring up in here.
You know, I would like to say before we get started and to give some other folks a chance to kind of get in here, I am an emerging fan of anime and anime-inspired video games because my sons are way into the video game genre in a way that I, with my Atari 2600 and that whack-ass Pac-Man that didn't even look like a circle, it looked like stacks of Legos.
Yes.
Something like this. That was all we had. That was the most excitement. We had tanks and we had the joystick.
Tank was fire, man. I used to kick my dad's ass at tanks all the time.
So now, these days, you've got all of these video games on the PS4 and the PS5 and everything. And there is this one video game in particular that I never really liked, but the theme music was so fire. And I was convinced that it was sung by some black diva who got transplanted over to Japan. And actually, she is just full on Japanese. And the game series is Persona. And Persona 5 has, when I tell you, fire with like these jamming jazz undertones, and she's just like doing like scat speak and all this stuff. And the one that really, look up Last Surprise, Persona 5, and you tell me that is not some jamming ass shit that you could sit into a club and just fucking listen to, because it is an amazing song. And that is just one. There's a couple of other really good songs on the soundtrack. The soundtrack is very kind of jazz inspired, but all of the lyrical pieces, like the main themes, are sung by this woman, Lynn. And I don't want to mess up her last name, but she mostly goes by Lynn, I think, because she doesn't like exactly want to telegraph that she's fully Japanese and not at all black. But I saw a video of her singing and I was like, girl, I kind of feel like it's cultural appropriation of a type, because you are so clearly modeling your voice after some black chick that you heard. But I'm giving you props because you are selling it. You are selling the hell out of it. Last Surprise. You're not going to think it's called Last Surprise, because you're going to think it's called You'll Never See It Coming, because that's the biggest part of the refrain. But your last surprise is in that. So check it out. I love that soundtrack. I love 3 or 4 songs. There's a whole series of Persona games, but Persona 5 is where it kicked into overdrive for me.
So welcome to my world. I have an entire playlist called Anime Bangers from different songs, different shows that I've watched. I'll be like, ooh, this. There's some shows I watched because the intro song was fire. And I was like, ooh, what is this? And some of it's rock, because I do like rock music. Some of it is rock inspired. I think the most popular, most well-known anime theme song is Tank, which is the theme song to Cowboy Bebop. And Cowboy Bebop has been around for decades at this point. They remade it live action and then canceled it on Netflix. But yeah, there's all kind of stuff out there. So for all of you who are willing to explore and do a little bit something different, I got like 2 hours worth of anime soundtracks. Ruby is a RWBY is also a series of games, and there's an anime to go with it. It's more CGI versus animated, but one guy does all their soundtracks, and he's got like a whole backlog catalog. I got like 20 of his songs on that soundtrack. So yeah, there's other music out there. And to your point about cultural appropriation. So again, welcome to my world, because you know I'm into K-pop and K-dramas, J-pop and J-dramas as well. And I gotta say, I don't think it's so much that they are emulating the styling of a black voice as it is white people can't do it. Because I think everybody else can. I've seen and Korean singers brought me to tears. There's a group called EXO, EXO, and they are known for being the vocalists when it comes to K-pop. They got a breakdown in one of their songs called "Don't Mess Up." It's called Tempo. And the hook is "Don't mess up my tempo." And when they break it down, you would swear it was Boyz II Men. I was sitting there like, oh my God, like I need to see these people in concert. They're fire. And so it can't be that many people able to do what we thought we could do. It's got to be, a little genetic. And I feel like everybody with a little melody got a little soul in them too.
Well, definitely, like the Filipino population and the whole karaoke thing. I mean, forget about it. Bruno Mars and blah blah blah. So I'm just saying
choreography.
Well, exactly. All I will say is that when I first heard this song years and years ago, I presumed, because I know some expat people who moved to Japan, some Black expat people who moved to Japan and were like doing the nightclub scene and becoming, relatively acclaimed because of, their ability to do this. And this is all original music. It's not like they're doing covers of jazz standards. These are people who appreciate music and put together a soundtrack with a synthesis of this funk and this jazz. And it's really just, it's really amazing. The last thing I will say about anime for right now is that I am watching this series now called Ninja Kamui, which is super violent. Like, okay, all right. I hope that's a dashiki reference. Yeah, exactly, and not I hope it's a dashiki reference. This is my Dianyu shirt. As opposed to I'm just looking hella gray. But at any rate, the point is that A, I'm getting a haircut and a shave, and B, that Ninja Kamui is very good. There's 7 episodes so far, and I thought it was all done. And usually on a show like this, I would binge it, but now I'm caught up against not being able to watch any more episodes, and I'm very upset. So we got to get you into this show. How about that? Yes. Because we do have some things to talk about. Obviously, and I'll let you lead, Joy, with the biggest story of the week about the latest grift from a super clown who is running for president. Yeah, so
I didn't think that I could be surprised by the levels to which he would sink in order to keep grifting money from his ever poorer base. This fool out here selling Bibles, y'all. And it's not even a Bible. It is a Bible adjacent thing. I don't even know what to call it, but it's got like the Constitution in the front and like the Bill of Rights. And so
Pledge of Allegiance,
church and state, he literally put it all in the same book. And he didn't even somebody compiled this for him, and he just stands up there. He ain't read it because he ain't read the Bible either,
This was not even his thing. This was the guy who I'm proud to be an American. God bless the USA. It was his thing. And the cover of this Bible has an embossed portion of the American flag on it, all of this stuff. Trump just glommed on. And I guess this guy said, well, maybe it's not selling as well as I thought, but if I partner with Trump
will definitely sell more. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's the only Bible endorsed by me. God's word is not enough. It's got to be endorsed by Trump for you to get this specific $60 Bible.
$60 Bible. Bibles sell in most bookstores for like $10-15.
Or if you stay at a hotel, you could steal one for free when
or if you grew up in the South, you got one when you graduated from college or high school.
Exactly. So I mean, this is something I didn't even check on Amazon, but while I'm doing this, I'm going to check on Amazon to see how much a regular King James Bible costs.
Wait, hang on. Shay Johnson, good evening. Saw the show highlights and had to come spend part of my 50th with you all. Oh,
not 2 Corinthians. That's hilarious. It's funny because to show you where the Sharpies are, because Sharpies are everywhere. I went to $14. You can get a King James, $14. It's faux leather, but Donald is a faux president.
Friendly, at least.
Yeah,
they killed a lot of trees to make that paper, but then they didn't kill it.
There's also a $16 version, leather touch. But I was up in Portland and at a hospitality suite and ran into a member of Zeta Phi Beta. And we started talking about our institutions. And I said I went to FAMU. And at first she was kind of bucking up a little bit. And we started along a discussion about politics. And I said, well, I mean, I do a weekly politics podcast. And she said, what's the podcast? And I said, it's Steel, Sharp, and Steel. Wait, you're Steel, Sharp, and Steel. And I was like, yes. And she said, oh my gosh, I'm a fan of the show. And I was like, see, and you about to bust my chops for being from FAMU because you were deciding. But it turned out to be great. It is always wonderful to bump into folks who watch and enjoy and appreciate the show. And we do love the audience, and we love what the Sharpies bring to the table each and every week. So we want to keep doing that for you, even though it has been a little sketchy the last couple of weeks, and it is likely to be a little sketchy next week. Just to let you know, I am not sure I'm going to be able to be available for the show. Joy may be able to do something for you, but
so if you would like to come guest host with me next week.
Yes, this is a pitch for guest hostery. Yeah.
Looking at you, chatters, all of y'all in this chat group right now.
That's right. Vera, Elaine,
Shay, Anthony, Elaine. Holla at your girl.
So at any rate, back to topics. So Donald Trump, a person who is presently, as he's hawking Bibles, is being about to start trial for hush money that he paid to a porn star while his wife was nursing his new infant son, and also hush money paid to a Playboy centerfold who actually felt she was in a relationship. Stormy Daniels never felt she was in a relationship.
Yeah, Stormy knew what it was.
Yeah, Stormy knew what it was, for what it was, for as little as it was. Karen actually thought maybe, she was about to be Trump.
She might have been number 5.
4 or 5, whatever, 45. And so she felt away. But then what has also come out, which I wasn't even aware of, I guess I had heard about it, but I wasn't sure about it. The other dude whose story that they hushed up was the person who had the doorman who had the deets on the child he sired by an employee of Trump Tower, who was apparently either a domestic of some sort, perhaps undocumented, but he supposedly sired a child, and he was actually the first catch and kill story because the doorman got paid first. But I think Trump's money didn't come into it until Stormy and maybe Karen McDougal. But the thing that they're focusing on is the election fraud, because he had Michael Cohen pay, and then he paid Michael Cohen back saying it was for legal fee, and of course that was
right. So, he tried to wash it, but it wasn't good enough.
As you were entering court for your 3 alleged infidelities and the hush money you illegally paid to cover it up, you have the temerity to hawk a Bible. And
let's also not forget,
because
this is the same man that when he was in office had the police tear gas some people outside so he could walk across the street to hold a Bible upside down in front of a church he'd never been in. Y'all, he is the Antichrist. I mean, what else do you need to see? He has perverted the Lord's word and added some more stuff in there that don't belong in there. And he is now selling it for profit. This is everything Jesus would have flipped the table and hit him with it at this point.
Flip the tables. And when you talk about, I'm not going to get too biblical because I don't want to, but you talk about not being able to buy or sell anything without a mark. And then you got all these MAGA hats out there. And if you don't have a MAGA hat at a MAGA rally, then, you're ostracized. And what are you doing here? And all this other sort of stuff. There's a lot of stuff on there. Them hats are blood red. I'm just saying, mark of the beast. Okay. So, he also got a slight reprieve on the money that he needed to post for the bond. Now, he's trying to make this seem as though this is some sort of major triumph. Instead of having to post a $464 million bond, he's only got to post a $175 million bond. But tellingly,
75% off.
I mean, but let's be clear. He didn't write a check or deposit $145 million or $75 million anywhere.
He still ain't got it.
He still don't have it. And now he's only got 9 days to put it together.
Them sneakers ain't selling like he thought. you know?
Show ain't. And you can't touch that true social money. And guess what? It's not going to be that valuable in 6 months. The
No,
financials aren't there, people.
no.
And you can get almost anybody to buy anything GameStop, but that doesn't mean that the actual value is there. Just like you sold those NFTs because you promised those people that these very valuable NFTs with me looking like a superhero or a cowboy and astronaut, you're going to triple your investment. We cannot guarantee you're going to triple your investment. What are they really going to be worth? Yes, you can sell people, but you are asking the stock market to actually invest in this.
And the
And
stock
not
market is
only
no fool.
the
Yeah.
stock market doesn't care. And
No.
your little people can't buy but a handful of pieces of a portion of a share of a stock anyway. So your most faithful adherents aren't going to be doing this because the smart money is shorting you, bro. They're
Right.
shorting your stock.
Right. And this was the lack of foresight in who he appealed to in his base. He appealed to people who are desperate. And I don't mean to be pejorative when I say that. I'm not trying to talk down on anybody's lived experience, but there is an air of, desire to be more, to change their lives, to not live their current existence. And he appeals to that by saying, come with me. I'm going to make your life better. And they trust him unwittingly. They trust him and they give him their money, but they don't have wells of money to keep going back to. They are exhausted when it comes to, soluble cash. They're cash poor. They ain't got it neither. And he doesn't
Right.
appeal to the upper middle class because they see him for the charlatan that he is. Most of them he's stiffed on a bill at some point anyway, or he's done
Mhm.
them dirty in the Senate. So he got no backers. He got no financials. He's got a few people that still rock with him, but even they are like, I mean, you want how much? Bro, I don't know. Because at some point you do recognize you're throwing good money after bad. And nobody's out. They were out there when they thought he could make the money. He has proven that he
Mhm.
cannot even keep his own. So yeah, he ain't got nobody to you're right. You're right, Anthony. Misplaced trust. And I feel bad. As much as they might hate me on site, as much as they, especially because considering what I do for a living, they think that I'm being divisive and whatnot. I feel bad for them because I understand that at some point they're going to have to reconcile the fact that they fell for some nonsense and the
Mhm.
fact that they've been scammed with a relatively long con and they are now $400, $6,000, $80,000 poorer with nothing to replenish it, and he is gone. And they left holding the bag literally. And I feel bad for them because it's gonna happen if it hasn't already.
Well, I will just say this. I'm looking at the Barron's review now. It debuted in the 40s. It got as high as almost $70, but it dropped. It opened today at 69.7 a share, and it is now at 60.45. And looking at the thing, there's a volume of 5.3 million shares. The market value is almost $9 billion, which would give him a nice payday when he was able to actually convert it. But there is a short interest of 3.17 million shares out of the volume of 5.3. So that tells you something.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a short interest charge of 45.8%. And the analyst ratings are that it is a sell.
If you can.
If you
Right.
can.
If
It's
they
a
could
sell.
put the little fire emoji in front of it, they would be like fire sale, you know?
Exactly.
But Avira actually made the point right here. Sam Bankman-Fried just got 25 years. He got sentenced
25
today.
years.
This is the guy, for those of you who don't know, this is the guy that was involved in like that FTX crypto
Yep.
exchange. Like that guy's fraud. And so Trump, people are starting to figure it out. And what is it? You can fool some of the people all of the time, all the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all of the time. That's how it goes, Mr. President Bush. But yeah, people are fed up with his nonsense. And the only
Fool me
ones that are
once.
still rocking with him are doing it out of this misplaced hope that one day they'll be proven to their loyalty will be rewarded, and it will never be rewarded. That's what makes me
It's
sad for them. That I know what it feels like to trust somebody and hope against hope that this time is going to be different, and it's not. I know that feeling, and so I feel bad for them. I feel bad for them. I mean,
it's the
fuck them
sunk
because they're trying to kill me, but I still feel
right.
bad for them. Yeah.
It's the sunk cost fallacy is what
Yeah.
it is. I in for a penny, in for a pound. Like why
Yeah.
I can't walk away now.
Right. When they
And the
need to cut
problem
bait.
is that Do you know that they actually tried to get Bankman-Fried a shorter sentence on the basis that he's autistic or allegedly
No,
autistic?
no. If we're going for diversity, then he should be able to have the same sentence as any other person without that same
Exactly.
disability. So I believe in
Who
equal opportunity sentencing.
who
Take your ass to
defrauded
jail.
who defrauded $10 billion worth of investors.
If he
Now,
was smart enough to
supposedly
do that, he's smart enough to figure out the commissary of prison. He'll be all right.
he's saying that he took that money and actually invested it, and because he invested it, the value of the investments has increased. So he is alleging that he will be able to make everybody whole. I don't believe that that's true. And Rudy Giuliani is another person who, in the midst of his bankruptcy, obviously the biggest debtor that he has is Shay Moss and her mama, which is Ruby Freeman. And that's amazing to me. That's 145 million. That is 98% of the debt obligation that he has. And the unsecured debtors actually got together. So the lawyers that he owes fees to, because none of those people, it's like the US government for taxes, if there was an outstanding balance, and then Ruby and Shay. Everything is going to be consumed. Probably, if the government has an interest, Ruby and Shay probably aren't even going to see anything. But if there is anything for them to see, everything else is completely consumed. So the debtors who have unsecured debt, because Ruby and Shay have a secured debt because they have a judgment. The government has a superseding concern because they're the federal government, and so taxes and liens and anything else that are federal. They are saying, you got to sell that condo in Florida, and you need to sell that apartment. It ain't nothing. It ain't gonna get us nothing, but you ain't gonna have no place to live if we
Right. You ain't gonna just have property and you owe money.
No. Those are the two biggest things that have any sort of value, and so that's what we want. You need to sell it. Yeah, well, of course, but I mean, tough titty, as they say.
Yes.
You ain't seeing that money.
And the Bible sales, they're not gonna get you there either.
No, and the Bible sales are not for you anyway.
No.
Let's be clear. But it's nonstop fundraisers at Mar-a-Lago. Apparently, that's like all Mar-a-Lago is right now, a fundraiser. And in the interim, we have Joe Biden, who has sold out the single largest one-day fundraising event in the history of the United States. It's a $25 million fundraiser. It's already sold out. And Trump raised $20 million in all of February and is very cash poor. Joe has 150 something million dollars on hand, and Trump has.
I gotta say, that's that State of the Union that he did.
Showed
him, and they really did. It was a great springboard into what we're seeing now. I think people were waiting for him to show that he had it in him, and he capitulated where he needed to. He compromised where he needed to. He called out and showed out where he needed to. It couldn't have been choreographed better.
No, and I think a lot of doubters about how he could handle things really had their fears assuaged by the way he gave that speech and what he's been doing in the interim. I mean, they have come out hard. They are trash talking Trump. They are not treating him well. They're treating him as he should be treated, which is not at all. And they are bringing that heat, and they are raising the numbers. That's the real problem that Trump is not committing to, that his fundraising is so far behind. So there's a little bit of fatigue. There's a little bit of showing that his dollars have paid Melania's stylist $400,000, that Alina Habba is on her 40th birthday at St. Bart's right now, sending out social media videos, people dancing on tables and whatnot. That's your money. The money that you sent to Trump to help him out is going to pay Alina Habba, who has not done a damn thing for him, by the way.
Who can't? But Elaine makes a point here. She says Trump is raiding the RNC, and now folks ain't giving to the RNC neither. This is what we're also seeing in the Republican Party, is that a lot of people are retiring, they're resigning, they're deucing out. Like, you know what? I'm so done with this. And I remember when we talked about the 2020 election, and before that, in other circles, we wouldn't have this platform, but in other circles, we were talking about 2016. I remember the discussion had amongst a lot of our, higher academic circles, that this was the beginning of the decline of the Republican Party. that if Trump got in office, the damage he would do. If he got reelected, we would see what we're seeing now. And I think if he had just went on into the sunset, the Republicans could have recovered, but he wouldn't. And they should have known that he wouldn't based on his personality, but they were short-sighted. He was fun to watch, and now he's a monster they can't kill, right?
Nope.
And they are starting to jump ship. They're just jumping. They're done with it. I read an article earlier talking about even in the House, some of the House Republicans like, you know what, I can't take this chaos no more. I'm old, I'm done. And people like, even Democrats too, that a lot of people are fed up with they're as fed up with the government as we are, and they're in it.
Right.
And so honestly, I think it is spun correctly, it can be a point of reclamation for a lot of young voters. Like, look, these people leaving because they see what you see and they understand. Some of them have said we're making way for new voices. Some of them's like, I'm just fucking tired. But either way, yeah, it's got to change. And I don't think the Republican Party can come back from this, not and remain as it is. They got to change. They got to rebrand, change the name or something, because it's a losing proposition, and they're so tied to it, and they refuse. So again, when I talk about teaching diversity, age is a part of diversity, and they refuse to yield to younger voices aside from the random crazy chick, right? They refuse to yield to younger voices. So they got antiquated, outdated ideas. They're appealing to a base that is honestly dying in one way or another, and they can't keep up, and they don't know how to connect with their grandchildren because that's who they can't reach. And that's the biggest the millennials are the biggest voting bloc outside the boomers, right?
Right.
They forget about us. And Gen Z is running making TikToks. They don't give a damn no way. But they're out of touch, out of sync, and out of money. And so is going to fail. And you're going to see 2028. It's going to be wild, bro. I feel like that's going to be the first time you're going to see independents with a real chance at gaining the House. You're going to see three-party system in the House and in the Senate, where you're going to have your Republicans, your Democrats, and a larger chunk of independents saying, romance me, show me what you can do, because everybody on each side is sick of the promises and the empty words.
I was in the mall the other day. My cousin was in town, and so we went to the mall to get something to eat. And the thing that I noticed is, at least in California, because California has a diverse population. So we've got Asian, we've got Latino, we've got white, we've got black, and there's a lot of different layers of Asian. So you've got Cambodians, and you've got Vietnamese, and you've got Chinese, and you've got Korean, and all of this other sort of stuff. But I saw a group of kids just walking through the mall, talking shit as little early teens would do. And it was a completely mixed group. It was like one Southeast Asian guy and one white guy and like a Latino guy. And they were just living their lives and just having fun, and just like, it is inevitable that as the generation comes up, if they have any friends, if they play sports with a person of another culture or color, if they, they're in their classrooms, they're talking, they're having fun, these are their friends. Like, it's not the same. There are pockets where it is homogeneously white. And so, you can allow those sorts of things to fester, those sorts of attitudes to fester, but it is growing. The very fact that, not Beyonce, the real inculcation of Black culture into country music is when half these damn little country acts started rapping in their songs. And they started line dancing with funky dance moves because, you could do those dances. And so now they're playing wobble at their weddings, and now they're doing the Cupid shuffle at their weddings. All of that sort of stuff preceded Beyonce by a long time. And
our
now
culture is contagious.
It's contagious. What's not to
like? This is specifically what they wanted to not happen when they integrated schools. It took a couple generations, but this is what they were afraid of, is that their kids would look across the fence and be like, that looks cool over there, I want to play with them.
Well, and it's like, there are still pockets of the country where they have segregated proms. They have the white prom and they have the black prom, and Black is cooler. I mean, let's just keep it a buck. It is always cooler to be with the Black kids than it is to be with just white folks. And so the young kids like cool. And
Not
so,
only
go ahead.
another aspect of it is not only is it cool to be with the black kids, but the black kids have also been looking over the fence and been like, "What's this about wizards and Waverly and
Right.
Dungeons and Dragons? This looks kind of cool." Now you got blurs are real.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be on a panel of just D9 people who are into nerd shit. You know how specific that is for them to be able to grab somebody. He put out an all call on a
Layers.
Saturday. He got everybody he needed by Monday because we
Right.
out here and we are influencing again. Now you're getting there's a anime called Samurai Champloo, and their whole soundtrack is hip hop, right?
Okay.
It's fire, and to the point that you talked about earlier about it sounding jazzy because it's fun, and the more they are unable to keep us divided amongst the colors, the more
Right.
they start to, their kids like, I want to go where the fun is. It sound like a party over there, and we've bridged the gap because we're partying in a language you understand. You know Dungeons and Dragons, you know
Right.
video games, you know rock music, country music. We're bringing the party over and then opening the door. You can come over here if you want to. And their parents are struggling to keep them on that side because there ain't nothing but mayonnaise sandwiches and crackers over there. Don't nobody want that.
And raisins in the potato salad.
Raisins and
Um,
potatoes.
you had begun to bridge the conversation into DEI a few minutes ago, and I wanted us to not stray too far afield because we're into our second half hour and we're trying to
Yes.
keep this after dark a little tidy. But a lot of DEI talk has jumped into the conversation this week, especially in the aftermath of the horrible Baltimore Bridge disaster. And in the immediate aftermath of that, uh, people started tagging the democratically elected with 70% of the vote mayor of Baltimore, who is a young guy. He's young
Mhm.
and he shows up on interviews in hoodies. And so, I can understand how somebody would see this young man and, you know, attempt to categorize his appearance in a way that belied his obvious political talent and his call
Right.
for prayers and support. It's not like he was driving the boat, and it's not like anything that he or anybody else could have done would have resulted in a different set of circumstances. It was a horrible tragedy. And yes, there are impacts that are going to be felt throughout the supply chain because that's just the way this country is.
Mhm.
But some people were making some particularly pernicious and disgusting comments. And because of that, it kind of segues us into this next thing. I want to start with some commentary that one of our favorite influencers and content producers, Booker Square, did in reference to a tweet that a gentleman named Kasim actually made on this very topic. So let's take a look.
I want to tap into this whole discourse around racists using DEI as the new slurs, the new N-word, and I want to use Qasim's tweet as an example. If you don't know who Qasim is, he's running for office in Illinois. He's amazing. Check him out. MAGAs are labeling DEI as didn't earn it, which is wild because in reality, generating historic wealth through 2 billion acres of stolen land from Native Americans, enslaving black people for 300 years, banning Asian immigration until 1965, and banning women from financial access till 1974, all without paying a single red cent in reparations or restitution, is the living, breathing example of not earning it. I love that explanation. I agree with it. And I think it's kind of funny when I get MAGA nuts and racists coming to my comments, calling me an affirmative action lawyer or a DEI pick. And the funny thing is, when you are the DEI pick, it's not that you didn't earn it. It's that we typically have to do more than everyone else to earn what we have. So I'm going to give y'all a quick explanation of what it looks like to not earn it. In 2014, I enrolled in the University of Memphis School of Law, and while there, I decided to enroll in the dual JD Master of Public Health program. I was their guinea pig. I'm the first person in University of Memphis history to graduate with the dual JD and PH degree. Fewer than 2% of people in this country have that level of educational attainment, and public health law is a very niche specialty of law, which became very important during the pandemic. So while at the university, I won multiple writing competitions just on my own. On my own time, I did those. I got published in one of Tulane's journals. I was a managing editor on a journal at my law school. I was an associate justice on the moot court board, won multiple moot court competitions, won awards for my briefs. I worked in 2 legal clinics and won every case I ever worked on as a law student. I was a research assistant on adverse childhood experiences because I had a research background, including in neuropsychology. So I continued that research as well. I also went to classes and internships the entire year. I had no breaks, even in the summer, because I wanted to make sure I got my dual degrees within 3.5 years. And then in my last semester with my master's degree, My brother actually got murdered before my finals, and I still did my final exams, turned them in, and graduated with a 3.5 GPA with my master's. So after that, I graduated with an offer to be a presidential management fellow during the Trump administration, no less. And they don't have race or ethnicity anywhere in those applications. To be perfectly honest, they probably thought I was a white woman because my name is Elizabeth. And we've seen the research on prejudice when it comes to names on resumes. But yeah, so all that to say, if that's what it looks like to not earn it, what do you call it when a bunch of salty ass racists who are losers and never accomplish anything in their lives are sitting on their couches seething from behind keyboards because Black and brown people are living life and doing better than they are? What do you call that? You know, my friend Mike B said maybe we should call them MIGAs, and I actually like that slur. I co-sign that.
I wasn't ready for the last sentence.
I wasn't ready for the last sentence either. And quite frankly, to see how accomplished she is, I mean, she seeps accomplishment and intelligence out of every single pore of her being. And so it is not surprising. But to hear the tragic loss of her brother in the final semester of her trying to get her master's and still graduating, turning in her finals on time, graduating with a 3.5, and being selected by the Trump administration, no less, to work with them should be all that needs to be said, really. I mean, what else can you say? That ain't nothing else really to say. But it was absolutely despicable. And since this is your bailiwick, Joy, I'm gonna let you have it and talk to us about the perniciousness of this foolishness.
So I had a lot I was going to say, but I do believe that I love Booker Squared, and I think that she did a really good job explaining a lot of it. But I want to help y'all understand how we got here and why white people believe in their soul that Black people are not qualified. There is a kernel of truth to this, and I'm going to tell you what I mean. 1933, right? We're going through the Great Depression. FDR, when he is elected, is trying to get this country back on its feet. He starts the New Deal. He comes up with all these ideas, dig a hole and fill it in, get the country back to work. He creates the federal housing programs that we now know as FHA today. It was the precursor to that. All of this is happening on his watch. Social Security, everything. He's doing it all to get the country back in an economically positive position. And so all these jobs are being created, even if the job is just paint the wall. And they're hiring nothing but white people to do all these jobs, which is fine according to everybody in the halls of justice. Enter Mary McLeod Bethune. Mary McLeod Bethune says, bruh, you know they're not hiring Black people, right? And he was like, what? And she's like, yeah, they tripping. He goes, I tell you what, I got you. So here's what we're gonna do. And I'm ballparking this. It may not be the exact number, but for every 100 white people, 10 Black people, you gotta hire 10. That's federal mandate, boom, quota. That was the first quota in this country on his watch because he was trying to fix the problem that was brought to him in the only way he knew how. Make the numbers make sense, right? 10%. Now, the country at the time did not have 10% highly educated, literate Black population. It's 1934 at this point. A lot of people still don't really know how to read, but you got to have 10 for every 100. So as they're hiring people to dig a hole, fill it in, work on a line, do some assembly, do whatever labor might have been, yeah, there may have been a few unqualified Black people in that mix because they had to hit that number. Didn't care where they got them from, didn't care who they were. You know, most of them probably were qualified. Some of them probably overqualified, but there were some that didn't know what they were doing. And those one or two were the ones that every white man looked at and said, he stole my job. He can't even do it. They hired him because he was Black, because it was true. Now, when we talk about generational trauma, that was 1933. Quotas stayed legal until 1978. I was born. 40 years roughly. Two major generations, including the boomers, they were born into a world where Black people may have still been getting hired because they had to hit a number. And that is their reality. And they are now the CEOs of these companies. And it is impossible to convince somebody not to believe something that they saw happen with their own eyes. And they still present this idea that we are still unqualified. Howsoever, we got education now. We got jobs, we got businesses, we're beginning to get out of this idea, out of this trench of a lack of generational wealth. People are starting to pass down things now. We've been innovative. I mean, we created half the stuff they took credit for in the first place, but now we can actually apply for patents. Now we can actually get credit for our ideas. We're uncovering the history of all the things that we've been doing this whole time, and it's short-circuiting a lot of white people's mind because they remember when, Leroy was not qualified, and they want that to still be true because it absolves them from having to do anything extra to compete. And that's where we find ourselves now. And that's why they want this diversity to die. That's why, even in Oklahoma, Governor Kay Ivey has been, I said she banned uppityness, but they put a ban on any D&I work in any of their public institutions. You can't get money for it. If you're using it, you can't get money somewhere else, because they want people to continue to believe the outdated idea that people of color are inferior. Even though everything in that law that she just signed, that the bill she just signed in the law says that no race is superior or inferior to the other, it was kind of but we both know, so it doesn't stop anyone from having preconceived notions. It just stops anyone from dealing with those preconceived notions. And the thing is, in my opinion, this is going to backfire on them, because remember them kids we just talked about listening to hip hop and rap music and liking other countries' culture? They still here, and they haven't forgotten, and they're able to look things up on their own. That's why they're trying to ban TikTok. It has nothing to do with China trying to come and steal our secrets. First of all, Singapore, but they're trying to ban it because people disseminate factual information on it without it having to go through the halls of whatever. And they got stores on there. People are making money on there. It's a whole underground economy on there, and it breeds freedom. It breeds true freedom. I don't have to come work in your office. I don't have to abide by your rules. I can be out here on my own. I don't mind if I'm living in a 1-bedroom flat with 4 other people. I'm free to think how I want. And that's what they don't want. They do not want an educated populace, because America runs on wage slaves. They need people that are going to continue to show up for a job that gives them just enough money to go to sleep and show up again the next day. Everything that they need flies in the face of free thinking. And free thinking is what they're trying to squash with allowing people to understand the full history of where we've gone in this country. All of this plays together. And again, there's little drops of truth here and there that people want to prop up and say, this is still true and it's no longer true. And there's some other things that were never true that they want to be true because it makes them feel good. And if you don't understand how vast that quagmire is, you can't attack the problem, and you definitely can't solve it, which is why I'm exhausted on a daily basis, because this is what I try to do every day.
One of the things that they haven't really copped to, even during that period of time where they were trying to force a certain quota in order to address historic imbalances in hiring practices, is that every white person that got a job before that practice was actually the most qualified. I mean, we saw very quickly in Major League Baseball and in other sports, when you let a Black person into the league, the dominance was there. You just didn't let them in. And so, Babe Ruth and all these other people who did these amazing things in the era before integration, it's like you weren't actually playing against the best. You never were. And so even in a period of time where educational opportunity was limited, you still had W.E.B. Du Bois going to Harvard and everything else. There were always Black scholars, Alan, always people who had it.
Hang on, I want to make sure I make a verbal correction. Thank you, Vera. Okay. I typed in Oklahoma. I meant Alabama. Alabama's governor is Kay Ivey, the one that banned DI in Alabama. And I apologize for that. Thank you for the correction.
I mean, Oklahoma can't be too far behind, but also Alabama touches Florida. So, I mean, not exactly a surprise. But I say that to say that the biggest myth that needs to be busted about DEI or DNI or, whatever, is that you all were always really the best. This argument of, oh, well, would you want a Black pilot flying the plane because the Black, first of all, like Booker said, you've got to be better.
Right.
Especially in things like that. You talk about doctors and everything. You don't have a problem with Ben Carson being a famous psychologist or a neurologist. You don't have a problem with him. But somebody else that isn't espousing your MAGA bullshit is all of a sudden a diversity hire and automatically is less qualified. Hospitals are tort factories. They are not exposing themselves to any more risk than they absolutely have to. They just aren't, because people are not afraid to file suit these days. So the very idea that they would let some unqualified person cut you open because they needed to fulfill a quota. First of all, it just doesn't happen that way. Second of all, you're just you're projecting your own inadequacy onto people who don't need your additional mental trauma.
Mhm.
We got enough on our plates without having to deal with y'all foolishness. So let it go. Let it go, baby bro. It's not what you think it is. And you're absolutely totally wrong. Woke, DEI, you're trying to be cute. Nobody's confused. Nobody's
Right.
fooled. We get it. We've been dealing with it our entire lives. Trust and believe. We know all your little tricks.
You know, all your little tricks. And I like to wake people up with this analogy. I say, you know, saying that, you know, using woke as a slur is the same as saying race traitor, which is the same as saying N-word lover. We just less syllables. That's the
Right.
same meaning, you know. And when people start to understand that, then they caution themselves when they try to throw woke around like it's some sort of bad thing. Why is it bad to be aware of your surroundings? Right? Why is it bad to be a knight or a justice warrior? Why is that wrong to be somebody fighting for social justice? Why is that a negative? And if you really think about what you're saying, just like when people say, I want to play the devil's advocate. I love Uncle Dan on TikTok. I love this thing. He goes, which devil are you advocating for at this moment? If you want to play devil's advocate, which one are you trying to support? Name it. Because if you can't name it, then shut the hell up. You know, there's I exhaust myself on a daily basis. I'm done talking about this, but I want y'all all to understand, in spite of all these states and all these places making all this ruckus about banning all these things on college campuses, I am booked and busy. The corporations are like, come holler at me real quick. Talk to me about this, because who's buying, right? Who is the market? And we are still in a relatively free market society. They need to know who's buying their products and how they can reach them, because especially because we have Instagram, TikTok, and X and Threads and all that stuff, mess up and see us come for you and see your stocks plummet in a day. They need to understand it, and they know that their livelihood depends on being able to get along with everybody. You know, so the halls of politics, because not the halls of justice, the halls of politics can do what they want. It's one screaming talking head screaming at another talking head. But down here on the surface, people are clamoring, help me understand my people, help me understand how to adjust some thoughts. And I'm seeing now that I hadn't seen before, help me figure out how to manage out these old heads that refuse to get on board, because we can't have them in here messing up our culture. That's the new thing. Is I've had multiple discussions in the last 2 months with how do we exit this old fuddy-duddy who continues to call women baby and slap people on the ass, like, you know, but he's a partner. How do we get rid of him? I've had that conversation, and it's interesting to see. So the more they do this, like most Americans, our favorite thing to say is you can't tell us what to do. And so the more they try and stop college educated people from understanding the fullness of history, the more they go look for it. And the more they find out more online than they probably would have learned in that 1 hour class that you banned.
Well, I want to, since we're talking about Black Twitter and how social media and market forces can play into it, I want to remind everybody that you should check out Black Twitter, A People's History. This is from my frat brother and friend, Prentice Penny. He's the showrunner of Insecure. He was also a showrunner for Girlfriends, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Happy Endings. You know, he's was a writer on Scrubs. He's had a long career and has just been escalating and escalating and escalating. He has an excellent film on Netflix called Uncorked. Not that one, the black one, that you should definitely check out. But this is a Hulu documentary series. It's 3 bits. They're an hour long, and it made its premiere at South by Southwest earlier in March, and now it's coming to Hulu. So keep your eyes out for it. Black Twitter, A People's History. The title is from actually, I think it was a book. It was a 3-part, almost 10,000 word series called A People's History of Black Twitter. So he basically kind of flipped it and inverted the name, because sometimes you have to do that. But Prentice is enormously talented and just a brilliant director and writer. And so I'm sure it is going to be an absolutely amazing thing. So please check it out. Black Twitter People's History, coming to you on Hulu. 3 episodes. It's going to be well worth the watch, I'm sure. What in our final 10 minutes, Joy, would you like to opine about? Because I know I could very easily go on to X-Men 97 since we're talking about blurred shit at the top of the show. But what else do you have on your plate before we tell these people it's time to gizzo?
Honestly, I kind of shot my wad with the DNI thing. My throat is actually a little sore. I talked for a long. That was a filibuster, you know.
It was. No, you knocked it out the park, ma'am. I mean, we could cut that into a commercial for your future gigs because you were killing the game on that one. Yeah, listen, I think what we saw when Ron DeSantis's campaign collapsed is that he thought it had a lot more juice than it ended up having.
Right.
And one of my frat brothers, we were talking about a particular topic, and he said, "Is the juice worth the squeeze?" He thought that if he squoze hard enough on anti-woke and DEI is the devil and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, he was going to be able to get enough juice to ride into the White House. And he didn't even ride out of his own state. So he had to quit before he even got to Super Tuesday. He quit almost immediately because he realized all of that he was doing, most of which he didn't even believe. He just thought it was politically expedient. And he thought he could out Trump and all this other sort of stuff without recognizing the inherent flaw to that logic, which is you are not Trump. That's like saying Carrie Hilson was going to out Beyonce. Look how that ended up. And Carrie's a beautiful woman who writes music.
Yeah, she's not Beyonce.
You're not going to out Beyonce.
Beyonce is a force.
Force. And even Rihanna. Rihanna has not released an album in what is it? Almost
since like 10
years?
Yeah.
Anti was the last
came out in like 2014, yeah.
Something like that. And so she went on to make her billions in fashion and makeup and all this other sort of stuff. But as far as an entertainer is concerned, an entertainer, Beyonce is still there. She's still at the top of the heap. And it's just one of those things. It's like Christina Aguilera, all these people who came out and could sing and were supposed to be like competing against Mariah or competing against whatever.
But bringing it back to DeSantis, and he just folded like a cheap T-shirt. Like
I saw that it was going on. I didn't know that it had actually happened, but you weren't gonna. He was not
Disney,
going to win against Disney.
No.
He wasn't.
The mafia can't win against Disney.
Bruh.
Jeff, I don't know what you thought.
The mafia,
how are you going to go up against your state's cash cow and think you're going to win? Because once again, like somebody else said, money talks. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And you know what I want? What I want all of y'all to do? Your homework. I want all of you to Google neurodiversity and all the different ways that it can show up in somebody's life. The reason I tell you this is multifaceted. One, you need to know more about it. Two, you probably got some people in your family or in your house or in the mirror that are suffering for it and don't understand. Three, it'll help you understand yourself and other people. Four, neurodiversity. Hear me on this. When we talk about D&I and how people are attacking it, everybody has a neurodiverse person in their family. Every single person. 20% of the population of the world exhibits some expressible form of neurodiversity. They don't even count the folks that just have a little tick and don't talk about it. Expressible. 1 in 5. This is the 5 people on here right now. 1 of y'all got something. Meaning when they start to attack D&I, they're attacking that 20% because they fall under disability. You get rid of D&I, you get rid of all of that. And being able to articulate and talk about it, 1, it shows compassion for your fellow man. 2, makes you smarter than most people in the room. And 3, it helps you be able to articulate, if you need to, why it's important to maintain diversity programs because of the high population of neurodiverse expressing people that are coming forth, especially in Gen Z, where they have more vocabulary and more facility to talk about it. It's been one of the ways that I've been able to maintain my position in a lot of companies. Is like, we got these kids coming through and they have ADHD and they have dyslexia and dyspraxia and dyscalculia and all these other things. And what do? You need to know how that is your workforce. You ain't getting away from that. And so, but learning about it also, wherever you are in your career, puts you in an advantage if you understand how to manage those people. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So go learn about it if you don't already know about it. And I'm telling you right now, you don't.
You don't.
Mm-mm.
And it's a part of, I think one of the things that is interesting about the increasing awareness and acceptance and study and consideration of neurodiversity comes at the tail end of an era where movies about savants kind of entered into popular culture.
Yeah.
And one of the most successful ones was Rain
Rain
Man,
Man.
and then you
Mhm.
had Forrest Gump, who, I mean, I don't
Mhm.
know if neurodivergent is technically the way to
Yeah,
categorize him,
some. Yeah.
but you know, when you see these popular figures and you look at even people like Hannibal Lecter, who's a violent sociopath slash psychopath, and you have a whole NBC series about him where he's just a compelling
Character. Yeah.
anti-protagonist kind of
Yeah.
thing. I mean, it's there's a lot
Even in the
in.
there was a Power Rangers movie, what, maybe 5, 7 years ago, and the Blue Ranger
Oh.
was autistic.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So it's interesting to see how things kind of come full circle in terms of how topics get broached in terms of, I mean, look at this year's Oscars. The best actor female was in a movie that tackles issues, I mean, putatively. I mean, I
Mhm. But still, we
it was an
talking about it.
interesting movie. It was an
Yeah.
interesting watch. But I mean, at its core, this is a woman's body with a baby's brain implanted inside of it, and seeing how that baby's brain interacts with the world through a lot of sex. Um, and by the end of the movie, which I think we're somewhat led to believe only takes place over the course of a couple of months, she's Amy. We know, sweetheart. We know you hated it. We talked about it in the office. But it's interesting to me how movies like Rain Man, movies like Poor Things, movies like Forrest Gump that show people in these different spaces end up winning Oscars for people. Even Charlize Theron, who played the
Monster. Mhm.
monster, um, it's something that's out there, and
Mhm.
damaged people and people who have different ways of interacting with the worlds around them is something that is certainly much more present in modern society than perhaps
You
it
know,
has been in a while.
without alluding to the movie that's coming out, because I don't want to talk about that. But there could probably, if I spent a couple of hours digging into it, I could probably draw parallels between the autistic savant that they try to present in so many movies,
Mhm.
where this is a person with some level of disability, but they've managed to be rich and make it over or
Superpowers,
whatever,
yeah.
and the magical Negro. Tell me Rain
Mhm.
Man wasn't a magical Negro,
Oh,
right? So there's something there, to your point, about wanting to see someone where, yes, maybe you don't want to feel bad for them because it will make you sad, and people don't want to necessarily be sad, but you also don't want them, you want them to not be as good as you. So you can see someone that has some form of expressible disability, you can say, I'm glad that's not me, and then feel happy for them that they went to Vegas and counted cards and got back with their brother or whatever.
right.
But to your point, this further solidifies for me the genius of Tropic Thunder.
Oh my gosh.
Tropic Thunder is a gem of a movie. For some reason, the discussion around blackface came back up again, and people are trying to find something to be mad about with RDJ, and black people across the board were like, "Nah, I'm
Nope.
good. That was
Nope.
great.
Nope.
He did a
Leave that
great
one alone.
job."
No.
But the discussion, I remember specifically, RDJ's character is talking to Ben Stiller's character when he plays Smiling Jack, and he said, "Never go full R word," right?
Right.
And there was something in Hollywood that rubbed him the wrong way, because that was true. Because
Mhm.
he said, "You don't believe me? Ask your boy at I Am Sam." And
I am
that movie
Sean
was
Penn.
good, but it didn't give you the warm fuzzies. It showed reality. You know, people were too uncomfortable. They were as uncomfortable with that as they were with Denzel Washington in Training Day.
Right.
They didn't like that neither. That's not how they wanted to see that person. So
Right.
anyway, we said we was gonna keep it to an hour, and we didn't got
We
off
are
on a
at
tangent
an
on
hour.
movies. Mm-hmm.
And so,
We have a one question
one
we're
of
gonna
these
answer
days,
before we leave. Who do y'all think gonna be the new Mike Pence to run with Trump?
that is going to be. Let's kick off. That's a good
Next show.
homework lesson because we are
Yeah.
not going to spend another 15 minutes opining about this. But that is an interesting talk because it hasn't happened. I'm not surprised. Probably closer to the convention is when he'll have to settle on it because he's got to present somebody by the time the convention comes. But the names that have been bandied about, I don't think are winning names.
No.
I don't think Elise Stefanik is going to give New York to Trump. I
No,
just don't
no.
see it happening. George Santos is actually a great philosophical pick, but that's never going to happen either. So we'll see. We'll talk about that. Sharpies, I want you to think about that. I want you to send us messages
Come
in
with
the
your
chat.
homework. Yes.
I want you to make sure that you are considering coming on to co-host with Joy because I will not be able to do the show next week. But after that, I would be happy to try. Although actually, nope. The week after that is this channel is going to be used for another purpose too. So we're going to be on a little bit of a hiatus, but we can still produce content perhaps ahead of time and send out an episode that you can reminisce
We're
on.
going to try and keep in touch with you. And if you're not already following us on Instagram, we've been a lot more active on Instagram. Mainly we like post things we've talked about here. You'll see us repost stuff in like Book of Squares, Summer Show, a lot of our favorite creators that talk about Black spaces on our Instagram account. So that is Steel Sharpens Show on Instagram.
Yeah, Steel Sharpens Show, not Steel Sharpens Steel. And with that, I will say that I'm Tom Cunningham.
I'm Joy Stevens.
And this is Steel Sharpens Steel. Goodbye, everybody.